All right, so looking back at this pattern on the Dow Jones, I've done further analysis on basically the whole move since before the Great Depression, but in this video, I kind of aim to bring it all together finally, right? To finally kind of explain to you why I see a potential for basically a massive collapse of the stock market and Bitcoin, basically, right? And a lot of other assets in this market, in all markets, really. I don't think anything is safe from what is coming. I think that there's a very good possibility that this cycle is over, and I'll explain to you where I believe that cycle actually started from in a moment. So I've just purposefully left out the labels for this wave, just so I can explain to you something about this pattern that intrigues me a lot. So obviously we have the markings here. So we have A, B, C, and this D wave is ongoing insanity, right? Um, I find it very interesting how this wave C happened the way it did, which led to the wave D expanding, obviously due to excessive money printing, stimulus, and trying to revive the economy. But in my opinion, this is not going to work. It's just inflating the bubble higher, and it's just going to be more painful, if this eventuates in the way that I'm thinking, right? So, what are the signs? Okay, so first of all, within this B wave, we're looking like we've completed wave D within that B wave. All we need to see now is depending on where that E wave drops down toward, which basically it can drop down anywhere within this range down to the beginning. I don't know if it will do that, but there's a good chance it might come at least back to the end of the first, the wave A in brackets right there, right? There's that would be like basically a type 1 expanded correction where the corrective portion of the internal B wave expands, but then it comes back down to roughly like a midpoint there, the end of wave A, right? And then depending where that ends, if that does come back down to this point, I believe that then we'll see, the wave C of wave D kind of go back up and make one more high to complete the wave D, right? And then we'll get a wave E down, right? And that will be the end of this correction. But what is this correction actually for? And this is the important part. Now, given that we had the first A5 wave move before that, right? This seems to be some, obviously, you know, connected to something. Well, what's it connected to? Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But nonetheless, if this is a correction, is it correcting just this 5 wave move since, 2016? Or is it correcting something bigger, right? So if we basically drop below the start of that move, right, I believe that that will signal that this is a top in the entire Dow Jones stock market, right? In probably a lot of other markets too, because this pattern will no longer just be correcting that, it'll most likely be correcting something bigger. So let's go to the weekly chart and I'll tell you what I think it's actually doing. So if I move this wave 4 to where I think it should be, which is here, and this wave 5 to basically the end of that move, then that would mean that the wave 1 that started in the 60s has basically completed at this time, which once again, I find it fascinating that this C wave happened here, which led to this crazy wave D that we're seeing. It's like more kicking the can down the road, like we haven't done that many times in the past, right? So taking even more of a step back, right? I basically have labeled this pattern like this: a 1, a 2, right? And then within that, we have wave 3. So we had a 1, 2, 3, sharp fall for 87 crash, and a really extended wave 5. Now, if this count is correct, then this is an entire 5-wave move finished basically all the way up until that point in 2018, right? So what that means is that this was a top, but the wave 2 correction expanded to the upside because obviously, with the type of measures taken in 2020, they tried to save the economy, right? From doing this very conveniently at the top. So, was it to kick the can down the road a little bit longer till we got to, I don't know, maybe the end of the year for the elections, the US elections? Is this election going to be an important one? Why would it all just be coming down to this point in time? It's very interesting, right? So obviously I'm giving you a couple of different options and scenarios here, right? So if we break that level here at about 15,000, then this is going much lower, right? And if this is a wave 2, right, then I would say that price will come back down to the previous wave 4 of wave 3 or in that area, right? Now, given that, this wave 5 within wave 3 was very extended, that would mean back to the 87 uh, lows or highs, whatever the case may be, that would be a very devastating wave E, right? And this would also suggest that the market will continue higher after this. Why? Because as I've mentioned before, the entire pattern, having done, you know, research on this pattern going back hundreds of years, where they connected it to the European stock market and all this type of thing, right? The wave B was ongoing for, a couple of hundred years, in itself, right? I think the stock market chart that I had goes to 1400 or something AD. Anyway, so the Great Depression was a wave C, right? And then we had another wave D, right? Now the E wave was small in this regard, right? In this setup, but I believe that was because we basically ended a B wave correction of a larger, well, either zigzag pattern or wave 2, right? Because this could be a wave 2. Like from what I can tell from the pattern, it looks to be a zigzag, right? A larger zigzag, but it doesn't matter. It really does not matter at this point. Let's just say it could be a B or a 2, right? It's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point is that we created a base here, right? And we basically going up for a massive 5-wave move over time, right? Now, if you understand how wave 2s kind of work, they usually pull back quite significantly, right? So in this case, down at these lows here, we had quite a massive pullback in wave 2, which went down probably like 90% or something like that, right? If we just run this up to the highs, it was about, the basically 0.886 area, right? And I usually retrace from the highest point, even if it's within the wave 2 correction. That's just how I do my fibs these days, not from the end of the first initial move. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that wave 2s do pull back, and even in that move, you can see that wave E was actually the largest wave, right? Now, I believe that the next move down that happens within this correction at the highs will be the largest and may likely collapse the market basically down quite significantly, right? Especially if we break that level at 1500, as I said. Now, sure, maybe it comes back down to the previous GFC low, right? That's still quite a significant decline, even from current levels. That would be 80%. So whether it goes down, to where I said before, that would only be an additional 10% on top of 80%. So what difference does it make if it goes 80 or 90%? It's already devastating to the market, right? So this is the kind of thing that is making me realize that what we're seeing in Bitcoin, it might, it might well be a wave 2 wave E that basically sends it back to its previous fourth wave of wave 3 area, right? I don't think that there's any difference in market psychology when these waves are all driven by market psychology to begin with, right? And so I think that, I suppose, influencers and people, who like to hype up these, cryptos and that, I just think it's irresponsible. I don't think it's very necessary, but everybody has to try and pump their own coin, shill their own coin, in order for it to go up in value. I mean, that's just typically how it works. In a way, it's funny because in a stock market, that's called manipulation, but in cryptos, it's, I don't know, it's a bit different, right? I suppose what I'm trying to say here is that over the long run, yes, I do believe that the market will be pumped full of more stimulus, more QE, more rescue packages, more inflation coming, possible deflation first due to this collapse, followed by uh, either massive inflation or hyperinflation, something like that. But I just believe that this is just the way that the markets operate, right? They create these patterns, 1 2 1 2, right? Obviously 1 2 at the lows here is part of this 5 wave move, and then the 1 2 that's happening, overall will be part of a larger 5 wave move. Okay, so regardless of down here whether this is a B or a 2, I mean, that's going to go on for a long time. So I don't think it really matters to think about that too much. All I know is that whenever we do see the low, wherever it is, wherever it ends up being, right, that will be the opportunity to buy at the lowest point. And I think that, it'll be the opportunity of a lifetime, because think about the length of time it took to get to this point in order to be sort of here waiting for some kind of pullback, which could be quite dramatic. Right? I think that doesn't happen very often. And I think that the coming move that happens after that will be massive to the upside. Um, Real massive bull market, right? A real massive, huge bull market in cryptos and basically everything else. So I suppose that's where my thinking is now coming from. I believe that it's the same thing with cryptos. We've seen this 2017 move up, which was the impulsive top, and then we are in the midst of a bunch of corrections, right? Which is basically the same thing. Like Bitcoin is doing basically the same thing as this topping process in this stock market, right? And if you think about it, it's kind of strange, right? Why would it be all A, B, C, D, E right now at the highs after the 2017 move up? Why would it be that, right? Um, if you start to talk shit about cryptos and people get mad, that's cool, because that's an indication of a mania at a top in an expanding correction. And if you're trading the D wave thinking that it's wave 3, well, I think this is where the bull trap, basically the bull trap scenario comes into play, even towards the end of the year, as we do top out in wave D. And then what happens after that? Like, would you really want to find out what happens without being careful? Like, I think that's a bit of a gamble. And, that's fine. If you want to find out that way, that's great, just in case that this is completely wrong. But I highly doubt it, right? And I suppose time will tell. And yeah, we'll keep an eye on this. And yeah, thanks for watching.